or put on the right side, on the outside.
Because
The other is inside or outside. Oh, you see, there's
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Bennett, 1, 2, 1, 2, testing.
The Kempter's microphone, 3, 4, 3, 4.
Panther, you should move that light up, because you got a shadow on top of your face.
Move it up.
That light is, you now have a dark shadow on this side of your face. You should move that light this way.
You want me to move the light?
I'll move it if you want. But
No, I don't know that. Light is sown for the righteous, joy for the upright in heart.
Or zarua la tzadik uleishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzadik uleishrei lev simcha.
So you might not have known that the early meal we just had has a name. It is called Seudat Mafseket. Mafseket comes from the verb lehafsik, to end or to put on hold, to break away from. At Jewish day schools or at camp, a hafsaka is a recess. Indeed, we break away from eating, but this is also an apt occasion to break from other things. We bring an end to all feelings of rancor and bitterness that have accumulated. We eliminate petty quarrels that have sullied our relationships, and we prepare ourselves to enter the most sacred and solemn day of the year, free of hostility toward others, at peace with ourselves and with our fellow human beings. Normally, it's a rush to complete the meal, clean up, and sprint over to shul. This year, some of you had to do that, but most of you made it here with just the click of a button. I want to urge you, though, to seize this unique opportunity to create sacred space in your home, a mikdash me'at. In these final moments before Kol Nidre, prepare your home to be a place for meaningful contemplation and prayer for these next 25 hours. Here are a couple of ideas. What chair will you sit on? Put a cushion or a festive pillow on it. Drape it with a special piece of fabric or a scarf. Think about what's around your computer or TV. Do you have piles of work? If so, cover them. Do you need more ambient lighting? Turn on a nearby lamp. Take a bouquet of flowers you might have elsewhere in your home and bring it into your prayer space. You can also try to limit other technology distractions. Turn on airplane mode and do not disturb. That will allow you to stay with us, but will filter out things like cell phone rings and text messages and other prompts on our phones that often call our attention. Finally, if you aren't wearing your talis, your talit, go and find it and put it on. Join the cantor and me in wearing the special attire of the day. I want to remind you that there will be times throughout Yom Kippur when we will ask the congregation to remain standing for prolonged periods of time. But should anyone among you feel unable to stand, don't hesitate to sit down. Do it. As for food, if you are feeling faint, if you are taking vital medication that requires food, if you are diabetic or pregnant or for whatever reason need some nutrients, please listen to your bodies. For only in health and strength can you benefit from this day. Just as we have greeters here in person and ushers and volunteers, we also have a greeter online. His name is Bennett. You can reach Bennett on Zoom and YouTube in the chat functions if you need some assistance or need some help in engaging in the spiritual work of Yom Kippur. Bennett is standing by. So let's all settle our hearts, focus our minds, and let us attend to this sacred duty. This is the 10th of Tishrei. We're going to remain seated for Bishiva Shel Mala, the top of 398.
Yeshiva shel mala uvishiva shel mata al מתירין להתפלל עם האהבה יונים.
As we get set to pray the Kol Nidre prayer, I want to note a few symbolic honors, and as I do that, I want to invite Nan Greenwald and David Good, past presidents of this congregation, to come forward. They will each hold one of our Sifrei Torah, and they will be representing all of the past presidents of this congregation, including Barry Allen, Seymour Benaroff, Steve Brown, Naomi Eisenberger, Jonathan Engel, Sheldon Greenholtz, Andrea Hirschfeld, Bob Marcus, Elissa Perlman, Linda Sotnick, David Tauger, and Joe Tenenbaum. All of our past presidents, wherever you are tonight, we know that you are here with us, and this honor is dedicated to all of you. Symbolically also, opening our ark tonight is the president of our congregation, Mariella Markellis Dibner, and the ark will be opened in her honor. I'm going to invite us all to please rise as the ark is open, and Nan and David lift the Torahs.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'charamei ve'konamei ve'chinuyei ve'kinusei u'shavuot. Din darna udaish tavana udeacharimena v'di asarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu letov kol hon icharadna vehon kol hon yehon sharan shavitin beteilin umevutalin la sharirin vela kayamin Ve'esarana la'esarei Ushevuatana la'shevuot.
The second recitation.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'charamei ve'konamei ve'chinuyei ve'chinusei Ushevuot. Din darna udeish tavana udeacharimna vedi asarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu letova kol hon icharatna ve'hon kol hon yehon sharan shavikin shavitin beteilin umevutalin לשרירין ולקיימין נדרנה לנדרי ואסרנה לאסרי ושבועתנה לשבועות.
The third recitation of Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'charamei ve'konamei ve'chinuyei ve'chinusei ushevuot. Din darna בטלין ומבוטלין לשרירין ולקיימין נדרנה שבועתנה לשבועות.
We'll replace the Sifrei Torah on their holders, and we'll remain standing. The ark will remain open. Let's read together, second half, bottom half of page 401. Make us honest enough to recognize our transgressions, big enough to admit them, strong enough to forsake them. Humble us by showing us what we are. Exalt us with the vision of what we may yet grow to be. Keep us ever mindful of our dependence upon you, and help us to understand your need of us. United with you in a holy partnership. Help us to create homes filled with joy and harmony, and to labor for peace among communities and nations. Kindle within us the fires of faith, and set aglow our courage to live the words we pray. Page 400 in Hebrew.
ונשלח לכל עדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לכל העם בשגגה ונשלח לכל עדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לכל העם סלח נא לעוונם הזה כגודל חסדך וכאשר נסעת לים הזה ממצרים ועד הנה ושם נאמר
ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך.
ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך סלחתי כדבריך
The ark is closed, and then you may be seated. It was a group of high school seniors at Parkland High School in Florida that organized mass demonstrations to put pressure on lawmakers to change gun laws in this country. It was a group of high school seniors at Milburn High School that organized a rally this past June in downtown Milburn in response to racial tensions in our country. Those of us looking to strengthen our institutions and position ourselves for success in the future know how integral the teenage voice can be. This is true at CBI and in the Jewish world at large. What should Jewish education and programming look like for the next generation of learners? What makes for a successful synagogue engagement strategy among youth? One of our strongest youth groups is USY, which gives our teens the ability to ask themselves these very questions and develop their own responses. They deserve a platform. In fact, they deserve this platform tonight. So it is my honor to welcome this year's Milburn USY Chapter President and CBI member, Alana Good, to address us.
My life would be so much worse if I wasn't Jewish. Isn't it weird that for a lot of people it's the opposite? My friend asks me this as we sit at her fire pit in late June, reminiscing about our separate and joint Jewish experiences. I met Gabby during my third USY summer, but we had both been on previous programs. At the beginning, we were both pretty quiet, but we bonded over our matching socks. And when our flight was delayed 3 hours from Warsaw to Tel Aviv, we spent the entire time together, delirious from exhaustion and the knowledge that we would soon be in a much happier place. I couldn't imagine my life without her. She makes me smile no matter what, and will always stop for ice cream when we drive somewhere. So this night we spent together just being happy, listening to our favorite slow Ruach songs that remind us of that end of Shabbat feeling of being together and being Jewish. Just like I couldn't imagine my life without Gabby, I couldn't imagine my life without Judaism. Over the course of 9 years of Hararim, Kadima, and USY, I've made countless unforgettable memories. There are so many ways to experience USY. On the chapter level here in Milburn, regionally through Hagalil events, and internationally with summer programs and international conventions. A lot of my memories were made on the 3 summer trips I was lucky enough to experience. My first summer, I spent 4 weeks with 32 kids and 4 staff, driving up and down the East Coast on a coach bus. I had never done anything like this, and I was nervous. But I made friends, I saw the sights, and I was Jewish in a way I hadn't been before. I was part of the group, the community, something big and magical. I bonded with new friends over our favorite snacks and TV shows, but also over our favorite prayers and Shabbat activities. I knew that this was my home, where I truly belonged. USY showed me the potential my Judaism gave me, and I knew I needed to go back and do this again. So I did. The next summer, I wasn't as nervous. I knew what I was getting myself into, and I was so excited. Last summer, I had just dipped my toes, waded into my knees, and now I was ready to be fully submerged in community and Jewishness. And submerged I was. About a week and a half into the 6-week trip, our bus broke down at a rest stop in Alden, Minnesota. We took over this tiny gas station in this tiny town and made it our home for the next 10 hours. Because when you're Jewish and you're with other Jews, you're home. We raced, braided hair, talked, and napped. And we sang. We filled Alden with the classics like Billy Joel and the Beatles, and with our heritage in the form of Shabbat songs and Hebrew lyrics. My third summer, I went to Poland, then to Israel. The order is important. I went to Poland, and saw the most tragic and terrifying places, felt the chill and nausea that you can't fully understand from the pictures. And then I went to Israel, from destruction to innovation, from tragedy to hope, from decimation to beauty and light and fullness. I learned a lot from these 3 summers. I learned that community is easy to create with the right people, that home is easy to build within this community, and that these communities and homes weren't always so easy to establish. And I learned all this through USY with other Jewish teens. Being Jewish is such a vital part of my identity now, and I want every teen that is part of this synagogue and our community as a whole to feel this connection. Because yes, being Jewish is praying and coming to religious school, but it's also hanging out with friends, eating Twizzlers and Oreos, relaxing in a space where you were born with the key to get in, where you automatically belong. Jewish teens have the opportunity to find an unconditional home, to become part of something bigger and older than we could ever imagine. And that's beautiful. Gemar Tov.
Yasher Koach, Elana. There are many ways for your teens to participate in our CBI programming. Our doors are wide open, and we welcome your participation. We welcome your voice. You have a seat at the table. So if you are a teen, join us. Elana, Yasher Koach, that was terrific. Thank you. At this time, we're on page 408. We're going to rise for the first 2 lines of this page, the call to prayer, the Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Evahed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated.
El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Imachaleinu Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Hamariv Aravim. Avat Olam Beit Yisrael Mechavta Ki Hem Chayenu Ve'orech Yameinu Uvahem Negei Yomam V'Layla Ve'avatcha Tasir Mimenu Le'olamim Baruch Ata Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Just because we've never seen God before our very eyes does not mean that God is not there. In fact, Paul Gauguin, the famous 19th century French artist, once commented, "When I want to see clearly, I close my eyes." And so with eyes closed, we recite the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. צווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה אם שמעתי נתתי מצוות לכם Adonai Elohechem emet v'menach kol zov v'gemalenu v'svetem v'yachim
Middle of page 418.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו להם, משה בני ישראל חנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, ראו בניך, וקיים לפני משה, זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
A prayer for peace at nighttime, page 420, Hashkivenu.
השכיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו שלום, במדין מקינו, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו, ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
Bottom of 420. If you're able to, please rise.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני תטהרו. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעולמה דברך ירתי, וימליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביום מחון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו mevorach, leolam leolamei, olamaya
Yitbarach.
Yitbarach, vishtabach, vitpar, vitromam, vitnasei, vitadar, vitalev, vitalal, shemei de kudesha, berichu, le'ela, ule'ela, mikol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, damiron be'olma, ve'imeru, amen.
Let's take a few moments now for personal, private prayer. The evening Amidah begins on page 424. At your own pace, once you've completed your own prayer, you may be seated. A couple of summers ago, I participated in a JNF program in Israel, but I surely couldn't return home without first visiting my Israeli relatives. I have upwards of 60 cousins in Israel. Some of them are Gila's cousins, but the vast majority of them on my side stem from one person, my great aunt. So this is my paternal grandmother's sister. She had 5 children. Each of them had children. Their children, who are of my generation, now have their own children. My Israeli cousins are like startup companies. They just keep popping up everywhere. So there I was at the central bus station in Jerusalem, preparing to take a bus from Jerusalem to Kfar Saba. And if you've ever been to that bus station, you know that the line of passengers forms long before the bus even pulls up. The doors to the bus open, and the line of passengers begins to move. Passenger after passenger, schlepping luggage, ascending the bus. Directly in front of me was this young Israeli woman around my age who, with one hand, was pushing her newborn baby in a stroller and pulling a large suitcase with the other hand. And as we approached the door to the bus, I asked her, "Slicha, at rotza ezra? Do you need some help carrying something onto the bus?" And she replied affirmatively, "Toda lecha, thank you." And as I leaned down to lift her heavy, large suitcase, she reached over to me and, extending her arms, handed me her newborn baby. I cradled the child in my arms as she folded the stroller and carried it with the suitcase onto the bus. What a profoundly moving experience. A mother handing her newborn to a complete stranger. Think back to when you had a newborn child and remember how protective you were. Why did that woman hand me her baby? I believe it can be attributed to 3,000 years of shared history and tradition. It dates back to when we stood at the foot of Mount Sinai and then at the threshold of Israel upon entering the land. The story of our becoming a family. And it's a story shaped by our longing for that land after exile and renewed more intensely 140 years ago with modern Zionism and 72 years ago with the founding of the State of Israel. Could the handing of a newborn baby to a total stranger have occurred anywhere other than Israel? This is but one of a myriad of stories that reflect the uniqueness of Israel and our connection to it. A few minutes ago, you heard another remarkable story, Alana's story, about the bus. That's an incredible story too. Sort of taking ownership of that property for 10 hours and being housed and fed, something that only could happen in Israel. Many of you are keenly aware of this almost ineffable quality. Alana's had this experience, and I know many of you have had similar magical moments, we could call them. Magical moments of connection in Israel, reinforcing our appreciation of Israel as a modern-day miracle. A modern democracy whose citizens of all races, creeds, and religions hold passports, but a homeland for world Jewry as well. You and I are familiar with the Israel to which I refer, but there is one generation that is becoming further and further removed from a substantive connection to Israel. It is also the generation that we need most if Israel and our story are to have any chance at renewal. Tonight we heard from one of the exceptions to that rule. So which generation is it? It's the millennial generation. If you are roughly between the ages of 15 and 30, all the data out there contends that your connection to Israel, to the beautiful story of Zionism, is dwindling at an alarming rate. In the final decades of his life, Shimon Peres spoke with conviction and eloquence about the importance of emboldening and empowering the youth, for they are the ones who will build upon what we have established. Yet despite the efforts of Birthright, of Taglit Gap Year programs, Hillel's, USY programs, the many CBI millennials who do feel that strong connection, all bright lights, all doing sacred work, but overall, the current, the gale force winds of disengagement remain dominant. To be clear, I am actually not blaming the millennials. I would like to draw your attention to two factors, two main inhibitors that have impeded the millennial generation from engaging seriously with and connecting to Israel. So what are these two growing concerns? The first is, you probably could have predicted this, the anti-Israel BDS movement and the hostility that Jewish students feel on college campuses. Just this week, Zoom, we all use Zoom, Zoom indicated that it would refuse to be the digital classroom platform for a planned lecture at San Francisco State University because the invited speaker is Leila Khaled. Who is Leila Khaled? A flyer for the event described her as a Palestinian feminist, militant, and leader. What the flyer failed to say is that Khaled was one of two terrorists who hijacked TWA Flight 840 from Italy to Israel in 1969. Khaled was released in a prisoner exchange and went on to unsuccessfully attempt to hijack a second flight in 1970. Many decent organizations who brought this planned event on Zoom to Zoom's attention noted that it is not always easy to know whether an event intends to educate or indoctrinate. However, sometimes it is crystal clear. Zoom took a moral stance that a college campus refused to take. Imagine how those on campus who support and love Israel must feel. As Professor Arnie Eisen noted, BDS is causing untold numbers of Jewish students to keep their heads down where Israel and Judaism are concerned, and to feel ashamed when they have every reason to feel proud. What's more, the anti-Israel activity has tied itself to other social justice issues. On campuses throughout the country, clubs advocating social justice propagate the idea that Zionism underpins many of the world's problems and claim that any Jew who feels connected to her homeland is part of the problem. I recall an op-ed from a student at Brown University who wrote about an incident that occurred there. A petition circulated against holding a lecture by a transgender rights activist. So why the petition? Because Hillel was one of the sponsors of the event. Pressure mounted, and the lecture was eventually canceled. And so where has this left Jewish students? This is a time when students are exploring so many different facets of the world and getting their feet wet in diverse social causes. The conflation of social justice and anti-Israel sentiment forces Jewish students to make a false choice a false choice between choosing Israel or social issues. And so as quickly as the Israeli flag goes up on your dorm room wall, it comes right down, if only for the sake of mere survival. This leaves us pained. In pain because we are aware of the struggle that college students are facing on campuses. In pain because we know, as the great human rights lawyer Erwin Kotler once said, the truth has been obscured, and if there is no truth, there will be no justice. And if there is no justice, there will be no peace. And feeling pain because never has this world known a country that deserves more respect but receives less, like Israel. If BDS is the first major factor jeopardizing the connection of our millennials, the second factor is more internal, deserving of Jewish communal introspection. Somewhere along the line, it seems Israel became a partisan issue, aligned with conservatism. And we know that young American Jews side more with liberalism. So if Israel is seen as a conservative cause, and young American Jews are exploring their liberalism, we therefore have to brace ourselves for a serious schism. There is, of course, one exception to this. The Orthodox community, young Orthodox Jews, remain aligned with Israel, which on the one hand is great, thank God that they do, but I also urge you to think about it. If Israel becomes an Orthodox cause and only an Orthodox cause, it will be impossible to reinstate a liberal narrative to the country we love, and it might only further alienate our youth, our millennials. So how do we fix this? Stacy Schusterman of the Schusterman Foundation proposed a couple of ideas. The first, education. And that's on all of us. Whether you send your kids to BBRS here at CBI, to Jewish day school, or educate them privately at home, we must do a better job equipping our teens with the tools necessary to cope with intersectionality, with BDS, with anti-Israel sentiment once they arrive on campus. One way of doing this is by reclaiming our beautiful story. It's reminding ourselves that ours is a love story between a people and its homeland, a story about the essential role of Israel in our lives, a story about a moral imperative, an intent to live in peace alongside Arab neighbors. Ours is a story of trying to do the right thing and sometimes making mistakes and then owning up to those mistakes. We need to reclaim and embrace the moral narrative. And I believe that your teenagers want it. Yes, they want to learn about the miracle, but they want it in a rigorous way. They want nuance, they want substance. They want to hear about the complex realities. After all, millennials are themselves complex. Let them see a bit of themselves in the story of Israel. It is our responsibility to provide them with the proper tools. And second, engagement. Just 20% of Jews in the U.S. have visited Israel. It's one of the lowest averages of all diaspora Jewish communities. Nothing, in my view, can replace an actual visit. So in a year or two, once we can resume travel with a degree of safety, I hope to lead a congregational trip to Israel. Come along with me and bring your kids. In her column entitled What It's Like to Be Black, Gay, and Jewish, Ilana Kaufman writes that the presence of multiple and competing identities exist in the same person. what's called intersectionality. We must make room for multiple impressions in the Jewish community. We must strengthen the center. Israel is not the cause of the right or the left exclusively. Let's double our efforts to secure Israel's position in the center. My dear congregants, with increased demonization of Israel, increased association of Israel as being a partisan issue, and with so many of our young adults turning away or turning out, now is the time to double down. Now is the time to reconsider what our youth needs. And here we can learn a valuable lesson from Shimon Peres. To make all of this happen, to re-engage our millennials with Israel, with our history that unites us as a family, we actually need to, and we spoke of this earlier, we need to pass the baton, pass the torch, so to speak. We need to empower our youth and give them the space to speak and to maneuver. That's why Ilana Good and every USY president gets this platform on Kol Nidre night. For into the hands of our youth do we place the hopes and the dreams for the future. I hear the echoes of Shimon Peres in the words of the psalmist who wrote, Urev anim levanecha, shalom al Yisrael. May we live to see our children's children and all of Israel living in peace. Urev anim levanecha, Urev anim levanecha, shalom al Yisrael. Urev anim levanecha, shalom shalom al Yisrael. May that prayer reach the open gates of mercy tonight. We're back in our Machzor, page 446, with the word Ya'aleh. May our prayers and our requests and our voices, may they rise. Ya'aleh, just as we now rise, and the ark will be open in honor of Dan and Ruth Dovdevani. This ark opening for Ya'aleh, page 446.
Ya'aleh tachnuneinu mei Erev v'yavo Shabbateinu mi boker mei Erev rinuneinu ad Erev. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh koleinu mei Erev v'yavo tzidkateinu mi boker ve'yireh pidyoneinu ad Erev. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Ya'aleinu yeinu mei Erev ve'yavo slicha
We'll close the ark, and then you may be seated. O God, our souls are yours, our bodies are your creations. So please, God, have compassion on your handiwork. Bottom of 448. Page 450, La Brita Beit.
Ki hinei kachomer beyad hayotzer birtzoto marchiv uvirtzoto mekatzer kein אנחנו בידך חסד נוצר לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כאבן ביד המסתת ברצותו אוחז וברצותו מחטאת כן אנחנו בידך מחיה וממוטט לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר.
Let's read together 3 stanzas in English. As iron in the hand of the craftsman who forges or rejects it at will, so are we in your hand, O God who saves us. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin. As glass in the hand of the blower who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, O gracious God. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin. As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, O righteous God. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin.
הנה ככסף ביד הצורף, ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מצרף. כן אנחנו בידך מאמצי למזור טרף, לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר.
Hopefully next, I know that's a big choir piece, right?
We're missing the choir in
We're
a lot of
missing the
pieces
choir.
tonight.
Yeah.
And I could use their help, but okay.
One day soon we hope, the choir will be back with us, and we'll be able to all sing together. Page 454, top of 454. El melech yoshev al kisei rachamim, minaheg b'chasidut mochel avonot amo, ma'avir rishon rishon marbe mechila lechatayim uslicha lefoshim oseh tzedakot im kol basar v'ruach lo cheratam tigmol, lo cheratam tigmol. From home, sing with us. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai da dai dai da dai, dai 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 dai, dai da dai 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 dai, dai 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 dai, dai 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 dai, yai dai da dai 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 dai, dai 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 dai.
El hareit alanu ב-13, זכרנו היום ב-13, כמו שהודעת לעיניו מקדם, כמו שכתוב, וירד אדוני בענן, ויתייצב עמו שם, ויקרא בשם אדוני.
Please rise.
ויעבור אדוני על פניו, ויקרא אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה, וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ונחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחלנו
turn to page 458, we'll open the ark. This ark opening is in honor of Bob and Jane Brower. Shema Kolenu, 458.
Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Shema, 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 Kolenu. Shema, Kolenu. Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel ברחמים וברצון את תפילותינו.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu, Chazrachem Aleinu, V'kabel Ratzon Tefilotenu.
השיבנו אדוני לך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם.
Hashivenu Adonai Echa v'nashuva, Chadesh Yameinu kekeden.
אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו.
The ark is closed. You may be seated. Gila and I went on our honeymoon last summer, the summer of 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago. We spent a memorable week in Japan. And on our first full day, due to the effects of jet lag, we awoke at 4 a.m. and we decided to capitalize on our sleeplessness and prepared to venture to the famed Tsukiji fish market to observe the early morning tuna auction. Some of these tunas go for thousands of dollars. It's really quite a sight. So there was just one crucial ingredient we still needed to procure as we set out on our journey: coffee. Before departing our hotel, we approached the front desk with a map big map at the ready, hoping the attendant would direct us to some kind of early morning coffee shop. The attendant paused, took the map from us, folded it, handed it back to us. But then he gestured that we follow him. He led us out of the hotel, down the block, across the street, down yet another street. Am I exaggerating? No, okay. Down yet another street until the coffee shop was in sight, and he pointed to the coffee shop. We were escorted by foot in what we perceived to be the most incredible expression of hospitality. As we quickly discovered, in Japan, these gestures are commonplace. The concept of selfless hospitality, omotenashi in Japanese, is seen as a cornerstone of Japanese culture. Courteousness displayed to others is centered around the implicit belief that no act of kindness or care is too menial if the result is that a guest is made to feel welcome, comfortable, and at home. I'm recalling this experience now because I think we will need courteousness and generous hospitality more than ever this autumn. Contending with the pandemic's impact, the frustrations about school closures, synagogue closures, a struggling economy, anxiety about how these things may very well escalate as winter sets in, and all this in an election year, we need courteousness. As we think about all the ways we've missed the mark this past year, we know that there have been times we have snapped at someone, times we've been quick to anger, quick to judge. Dear congregants, as we enter autumn, it would serve us well to internalize the principle of omotenashi. Wearing masks, we can smile with our eyes. Let's be kind on social media. Remember to thank your child's teacher and your child's rabbi and cantor. Thank them too. As we unburden ourselves from our past errors, let us commit to weaving a strong social fabric together. As important as it is to be our best selves between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, perhaps more important is to endeavor to be our best selves between Yom Kippur and next Rosh Hashanah. Page 460, we'll sing Ki Anu Amecha, and then we'll rise for the Ashamnu and the Alchetz. Page 460.
Eloheinu, Elokei Avoteinu, Slach lanu, Mechal lanu, Kapel lanu, Ki anu Amecha, Ve'ata Eloheinu, Anu Banecha, Ve'ata Avinu, Anu
462. Let's rise if you're able to.
Eloheinu v'Elokei Avoteinu, Ana tavu lefanecha tefillatenu, ואל תתעלה מתחינתנו, שאין אנחנו עזיפנים וקשי עורף לומר לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אבל אנחנו חטאנו. דיברנו דופי, הבינו, והרשנו, זדנו, חמסנו, תפלנו שקר, כיזבנו, לצנו, מרדנו, ניאצנו, שררנו, אבינו, עשנו, שררנו, קישינו עורף,
Standing, let's read together, bottom of 465. You know our deepest thoughts. You know the mysteries of the universe as well of the secrets of every mortal. You search the deepest recesses of the human soul and probe all our thoughts and motives. Nothing escapes you, nothing is concealed from you. Therefore, may it be your will, Lord our God, God of our ancestors, to forgive all our sins, to pardon all our iniquities, and to grant us atonement for all our transgressions. 466 Al Chet.
Al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'iimutz halev, ve'al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'bitui sfatayim, al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'galui v'sater, ve'al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'dibur peh, al Chet shechatan lefanecha be'arvor halev, ve'al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'vidui peh, al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'zadon u'bishgaga, ve'al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'chilul Hashem, ve'al kulam Eloah selichot, slach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. Al Chet shechatan lefanecha b'tipshut peh, ve'al Chet shechatan lefanecha biyodim ולא יודעים, על חטא שכן על פניך בחפת שוחד, ועל חטא שכן על פניך בלשון הרע, על חטא שכן על פניך במאכל ומשתה, ועל חטא שחטא על פניך בנטיית גרון, ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו, על חטא שחטא על פניך בסיפור עין, ועל חטא שחטא על פניך בעזות מצח, על חטא שחטא על פניך בפלילות, ועל חטא שחטא על פניך בצרות עין, על חטא שחטא על פניך בקשיות עורף, ועל חטא שחטא על פניך ברכילות, על חטא שחטא על פניך בשנאת חינם, ועל חטא שחטא על פניך בתימהון לבב, ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
You may be seated. On page 470 in your Machzorim, there's this beautiful piyut. It's a beautiful liturgical poem. And what is emphasized here is that we ask God to hear our prayers. And the formula here is, may the one who answered our ancestors also answer us. There's just one problem with the piyut on the page, with many of these examples. Actually, there's nothing wrong with these examples that are here. What's wrong is what's omitted, which is it seems on this page that it's only male prayers that have been answered, if you look at who's on the page. So the cantor and I have an egalitarian version of this piyut, and it is that version that we are going to sing to you and with you this evening, so that we can recognize and acknowledge all of our ancestors whose prayers were answered by God. And you can, of course, respond, Hu Ya'anenu, which is the response, the refrain after each verse.
משענה לשרה אימנו בזקנתה הוא יעננו, משענה לאברהם אבינו בהר המוריה הוא יעננו, משענה ליצחק בנם כשנעקר על גבי המזבח הוא יעננו, משענה לרבקה בהריונה הוא יעננו, הוא יעננו, הוא יעננו, הוא יעננו, הוא יעננו.
May the one who answered Jacob at Bethel, Hu Ya'anenu. May the one who answered Leah in her loneliness, Hu Ya'anenu. May the one who answered Rachel, desperate for a child, Hu Ya'anenu. May the one who answered Joseph, abandoned in prison, Hu Ya'anenu. Mishana lam yaldot ivriot al ovnaim hu ya'anenu. Mishana liyocheved al tzvatayeo hu ya'anenu. Mishana lavotenu limotenu al yamsuf hu ya'anenu. Mishana lemoshe bechorev hu ya'anenu.
הוא יעננו, הוא יעננו. Yaneinu. May the one who answered Aaron, offering incense to God, Hu Yaneinu. May the one who answered the daughters of Zelophehad, standing their ground, Hu Yaneinu. Mishana lechol hatzadikim v'hatzadikot v'hachasidim v'hachasidot v'hatmimim v'hatmimot v'hayesharim v'hayesharot v'harachamanim v'hacharamaniyot. Hu Yaneinu, Hu Yaneinu, Hu Yaneinu, Hu Yaneinu.
May the God who answered our ancestors answer us this year as well. Amen. We'll open the ark. We'll rise for Avinu Malkeinu on page 472. This ark opening is in honor of Susan and Larry Gordon. Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, einanu melech elata. Avinu Malkeinu, achazir b'tshuva shelefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu, shalach refuah shlema lechol yamecha. Avinu Malkeinu, hafer atzat oiveinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, zochreinu bezichron tov lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu zochreinu b'zichron tov lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotveinu b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu kotveinu b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotveinu b'sefer geulav Yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu kotveinu b'sefer geulav Yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu, kotveinu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, kotveinu b'sefer zechuyot. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, kotveinu b'sefer slicha u'mechila. Avinu Malkeinu atzmach anishim v'karov, Avinu Malkeinu arim v'kevin shalom v'olach, Avinu Malkeinu shmak v'yim, Avinu Malkeinu k'vavarach v'aseh v'yadin v'yakinu v'olach. Avinu Malkeinu, חננו ועננו, כי אין בנו מעשים. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד והושיענו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו ועננו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו ועננו, כי אין בנו מעשים. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד והושיענו.
We'll close the ark. Kaddish Shalem, 476.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בעולמד יברך גדולתי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהי שמי רבם מבורך, לעולם לעולמי עולמיה.
יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקודשם. בריחו לעילא ולעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן מעולמה ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
תתקבל צלותון וביטחון דכל ישראל קדם אבון דבשמיא ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
עלינו.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה, לייצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו חורגים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. שאתה שמע ישראל שמשה ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
going to invite all those in mourning and all those observing a yortzeit on Yom Kippur to remain standing. We'll turn to page 482 for these powerful words that link one generation to another. Yit gadal ve'yit kadash shemei rabba ve'olma divra chirutei ve'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yamechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman akari v'meru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'lolmei olmaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'al v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'alev v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu leila leila mikol bechata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata damiran be'olma v'meru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav Uyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru amen.
Amen.
May the memory of all those you recall this evening remain as a blessing for you in life. Amen. I'm going to invite the president of the congregation, Mariella Markellis Dibner, to offer us some greetings.
Thank you, Rabbi. First, I'd like to thank Linda and Bill Glassfer for providing the beautiful flowers that adorn our bima tonight and tomorrow. They're in memory of their parents, Mildred and Sydney Spector, and Frida and Paul Glassfer. Also, I'd just like to remind everybody, tomorrow morning, services start at 9 a.m. For here in the main sanctuary in person, on Zoom, on live stream, and also on Zoom. Our Young Family service also starts at 9 a.m. There will be a walk in the park with Rabbi Eisenberg in Taylor Park, for those of you who can make it. And at 5:30, there's going to be Mincha and Ne'ilah here again in the sanctuary, and on Zoom and on live stream. And there's also going to be a family program for children and their families in kindergarten through 6th grade, and that is also at 5:30. So there's lots tomorrow to keep us spiritually awakened and in touch and engaged with CBI, and we hope that you'll all take full advantage of these opportunities. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mariella. Before we conclude tonight, I also want to, on the cantor's behalf and mine as well, extend our appreciation to all of you for being here with us on YouTube, on Zoom, and in person. Even on Yom Kippur, we, the clergy and the lay leadership, do not take your presence for granted. And we want you to know that we are moved by your presence being here with us tonight. Let's turn to the special psalm for this season on page 484, and perhaps we'll highlight together the beautiful passage 4 lines down from the top of the page, beginning with the words Achat Sha'alti.
Achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shifti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai, lachazot benom Adonai libecha v'kavei el Adonai.
One additional change in the original schedule for tomorrow evening. During the week, we received a few requests from people who planned to be with us online for Ne'ilah tomorrow evening, but then expressed a desire to be with us outdoors in person for Havdalah and the final blast of the shofar. So to enable both of those things, someone who can be with us online for Ne'ilah and then join us outdoors, we've pushed Ne'ilah up a little bit. So Ne'ilah tomorrow will begin at 6:05 p.m. and we will conclude Ne'ilah right at about 10 to 7 or so, 10 to 7, maybe 5 to 7. And then we're going to pause for 15 minutes to allow people who are viewing Ne'ilah to get here to the parking lot and join us outdoors, socially distanced, with masks on, for a communal Havdalah beginning at 7:10 p.m. So that's the slight adjustment in tomorrow evening schedule. We're going to conclude tonight on 486 with Yigdal. We wish you a tzom kal, kitiva vechatima tova, and a very good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Yigdal.
Yigdal Elohim chai ve'yishtabach nimtza ve'ineit el metziuto echad ve'in yachid ke'ichudo ne'elam ve'gam ein sof le'achduto.
Ein lo demut haguf ve'yeino guf lo naroch elav kedushato kadmon lechol davar asher nivra rishon ve'ein reshit lereshito.
Hino Adon olam v'chol notzar yoreh gedulato u'malchuto shefa nevuato netano el anshei segulato v'tifarto.
Lo kam be'Yisrael k'Moshe od navi umabit et emunato Torah emet natan le'amo el al yad nevio neman beito.
Lo yachal Yifrael ve'lo yamir dato le'olamim lezulato tzofe ve'yodea setareinu mabit lesof davar ve'kadmato.
Gomer leish chesed kemifalo noten lerasha ra kerishato yishlach leketz yamin meshicheinu liftot mechakeketz Yeshuato.
Meitim Yechael berov chasto Baruch Adei Ad Shem Tehilato. Meitim Yechael berov chasto Baruch Adei Ad Shem
Yasher koach to the members of the reopening committee, our ushers and volunteers, and everybody for helping ensure that we had such a beautiful service this evening. To the cantor, to Alana Good, and all of our honorary honorees. Yasher koach to you. Tzom Kal, have a good night, everyone.
Tzom Kal, and Yasher koach to you, Rabbi Eisenberg. And thanks for all the choir members who are singing along with me at home and everybody else singing along at home. Thank you.
Those in the building, do your best as you leave to maintain social distancing protocols. Thank you.
You must have a